I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down. I want to go higher, higher, higher than this.
Hi, this is Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, host of the Badass Women's Council podcast, and I am super glad that you're here. Today, we have Courtney Simkus. She is the Chief Growth Officer at Gibson Insurance and also one of the participants in Rise and Thrive Indianapolis. And Courtney comes today to talk about the courageous steps that we take throughout our lives and our careers that move us towards our meaning and purpose. That it's not really this big, giant leap that we just all of a sudden arrive in this place that we call our meaning and purpose. We just courageously look around and say, that looks interesting. Let me try that for a while. Oh, that looks interesting. Let me try that for a while. And the more that we follow that curiosity, the more we will uncover about ourselves and what we're really meant to be doing. No other introduction needed. Here we go. Hey, Courtney, how's it going?
It's great. How are you?
Super good. Thanks for coming to the closet.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
We've done a little inventory of how much we need to go shopping, each of us, based on,
And I think we need to do it in each other's closets, starting there.
Absolutely. A little swap out. I think that's a good thing.
Right.
Let's plan that for sure. So we are going to talk, we've known each other on and off for gazillions of years.
Yeah. I don't even know where, I feel like it's been like all my life, but I know it hasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and especially when you meet somebody that is so much like you, where you're like, oh, she feels familiar.
I find you human. You feel like me. Come hang out. Let's play.
She's a little crazy like me. I like it. And we had an introduction by a common friend of ours, which we just have to shout out to Chris Brantman because he's a master connector and
one of the best humans on the planet.
Absolutely. And don't you find that some of the best relationships that you've discovered over the years have come from that kind of introduction? Somebody that knows you well and says, oh, you should know them.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that's where I tend to bond with people like that because that's how I look at the world too. It's like, the moment I meet somebody, the moment we're talking about something, whether it's in business or personal, it just feels like, oh, wait a minute. I see something in you that looks like this person. You guys need to know each other.
Exactly. So, exactly. We need people like us connectors to do that.
Yeah.
So we want to talk today about this idea of finding your meaning and purpose. Because doesn't that just sound daunting?
Heavy.
Yeah. Like if I wake up and just think, oh, I hope I discover my meaning and purpose today, I'm just not getting out of bed because that's too big.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've listened, there's been a number of people that talk about like how they found their purpose and they've always known that they wanted to be X, Y, or Z. And whether it's, somebody like Elizabeth Gilbert who always knew she was a writer or, just people in our lives that are so certain in that. And I've always just had such admiration for that and thought, gosh, okay, if only I could find my purpose. But I'm pretty relentless at things. So believe me, if I could have found it, I would have. I mean, I have turned over some rocks looking for that thing. And you know what? I who knows? Maybe I will someday. But so instead of just living in fear and paralysis, like something I discovered about myself early on in my life was like, listen, okay, until I figure out what my purpose is, like that looks kind of interesting. I'm going to go try that on. Maybe there's something over there that will lead me to that. And so like I have just, kind of lived my life growing up looking for my, going towards my curiosity and following that instead. And sometimes it's led me to places that you were like, yeah, no, this doesn't work out. This isn't the right thing for me. But there's always been lessons in that and something that whether I knew it or recognized it in that moment, actually was exactly what I needed to know or needed to learn, that led me to the next thing. So. Amen.
And I also have just coveted those people that have known. My son is one of those people. He's always known that he's going to be in music and do he was going to be a paleontologist when he was 3, but once he got into music, that was forever. And I agree. I at one point early on, I kind of thought something was wrong with me because I didn't know mine. And then I realized that not a lot of people have that gift to be able to know that early on.
Yeah. And it is a gift. And it is something that I know, I mean, we have people in our organization and people that I've mentored over the years that I was, and am the same way, where you hold on to like this, like, fear of making the wrong decision and fear of like, well, I don't know if that's going to be the right job for me or the right role for me, or like, if this doesn't happen and I don't get that job or that promotion, then the world crumbles around you. And it's just, we got to let some of that shit go sometimes.
Oh, amen, sister. Let's just decide that today. And one of the other things we have in common is we both grew up in small town, Midwest, USA, little family farm. I think you're similar, right?
Yep.
And so my world was pretty small when I was growing up. But one of the things I will always say is that the biggest gift my parents gave me was little to no expectations.
Yeah.
Because then I couldn't screw it up. It wasn't like I grew up and they said, oh, well, you're going to be a whatever, fill in the blank. I was literally, as a child and into teens and young adults, left to just explore.
Yeah.
And they celebrated when you tried stuff.
Right.
But it wasn't this like, I'm going to put you in all these clubs. Like, my mom never checked my homework or my grades. Like, they weren't those kind of parents, but literally, I think partly because we were just grow up on a farm and you find things to do because, it's not structured like activities. Curiosity was really rewarded in my life. And I now look back on that and think, what a gift.
Right. Well, when I think about some of the people, very similar to your points about being able to explore and find, the things that you were interested in. I grew up in a very similar way where my mom, probably out of necessity, because my mom was a single mom most of my life, and short of a couple of stepdads that were in the equation, and she worked her tail off, and so she wasn't able to be there and like micromanaging me
for your entertainment,
for my entertainment, right, and making sure I wasn't bored or whatever. And yet the thing that, she gave me, and a couple of really significant women in my life also gave me, was this gift of, while it wasn't an expectation, it was, they saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. I remember one of the ladies that worked at the restaurant that my godparents owned, she always told me, you're going to be great. You're going to do amazing things in life. I see so much potential in you and all of the things that the way that you're going to impact the world. And it sticks with me. And I
that
feel
gives me like that. I tear up just hearing that. Right.
Yeah. And it's, I think about her, and I think about my mom, and I think about my godmother and all of those women that were like, you're going to do great things on those days where I just want to like stay in bed or give up or say, you know what, it's just not worth it. Because I have an obligation to them and to the other people that have seen in me things I didn't see in myself, and to be those eyes for people that don't see that in themselves as well.
Yeah. To live up to that inspiration that they have given you.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, I hear that. And you and I both have young daughters. And then I ask myself, am I doing enough of that for them?
Yeah.
Because I think that today's culture has really done a disservice to our kids to pressure them to be in achievement mode way sooner than they should feel that pressure. And instead just saying, you're amazing.
Yeah.
And you're going to be great.
Well, and I've thought a lot about that too, and not wanting to impose my expectations on my daughter as well, but the reality is that I can't ignore that those expectations that she will create on her own, or that the world and society creates and helps shape her to feel this sense of perfectionism, aren't there.
Yeah.
So if I'm not talking to her about like, hey, I'm almost 45 years old and I still feel that sense of overthinking and I've got to be perfect, and are they going to like me, and am I enough, and am I worthy? Like, the stuff doesn't go away. It just gets louder, and we talk about her.
The little bitch that lives in our head. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, where does that start? And if I act like it doesn't, if she isn't already like setting up shop in my daughter's head, like I'm just being blind.
Right.
Because we know that that's where it starts.
So equipping them to deal with that early is going to be our best gift.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. So as you've been able to be curious in your career, I mean, now you're sitting in a position that is, you're chief growth officer of an amazing organization, Gibson Insurance, and doing great things for them. And as you think back now to this, what I refer to as the breadcrumb trail of discovery for people like you and I who didn't know at 6 what we were going to be when we grew up. As you look at that breadcrumb trail of discovery, can you go back even to like early jobs and things and think about things that you now use today that had you not had some of those experiences wouldn't put you where you are today?
Yeah. Oh, so many. And it's so I think about if you would have asked me, my 24-year-old self, when I, had been fresh out of college with my degree in criminal justice and making a very, what externally felt like a difficult decision because I had declared I was going to go to law school. And then my senior year of college realized I didn't really want to be a lawyer. So that was kind of like, okay, how do I pull that all back?
So that ties courage and curiosity together, which I think is an important thing, right? So curiosity says, I'm going to follow something for a little while. If this doesn't work out, I'm going to do something. So courageously being able to say, oh, crap, I proclaimed I was going to be a lawyer. These people had expectations. And then courageously say, nope, not going to do that.
Change my mind.
Like, that's big. Like, that's a muscle to really build.
Yeah, and scary. And, but yeah, I knew during that time that it just didn't feel right. And so looking at ways that
I didn't quite. Could you please repeat it?
Siri's just talking in your purse.
Right. Siri, nothing for you today.
I seem to be having trouble hearing you. Sorry about that.
This is what I love about the podcast is we don't get worked up about stuff. That's real life. So we're not about perfection. But I think the new sidebar. I think the new update, like this is the third person I've been with in 48 hours that's happened to. So I think not only is Siri and Alexa and all the people in our lives listening in, like now they're interrupting us.
Right.
Like if you're going to listen in, just do it quietly. I'm trying to have a freaking podcast here.
Right. Siri is now the external bitch that lives in our head.
What is happening? Oh my God. Okay. Back to not going to law school.
So like if I would have asked my, 24-year-old self, like, at almost 45, you're going to be a chief growth officer for an insurance company. Like never in the million years would that have even registered.
Right.
And when I talk to other executives and mentors, former mentors and people that are in, they own companies, or they're in, big jobs, they're all like, listen, like there's really no roadmap most of the time to like, I'm going to get out of school and I'm going to start in sales and I'm going to become a sales exec and vice president, and then magically one day I'm going to arrive at this promised land. Like it doesn't, I mean, I know maybe one person, if that it ever went that way. Everybody's like this, like, tapestry of like, this messy jungle gym of like, I'm going to go over here and try this. And that was me. Like so I wanted to be in sales, had a degree in criminal justice, and I had worked at Palomino in Indianapolis.
A restaurant?
Through college. And so naturally everybody wanted to, when I declared I wanted to be in sales, my door was getting beaten down with the potential of interviews. And that is absolutely not the truth. I could not pay people to interview me. And I tried, like, I did all of the things, mailed resumes, dropped off resumes. And finally, like my ex-husband and I at the time we were, he was traveling for his job and was in North Carolina a lot. And I was like, okay, why not? Why don't I throw out some resumes in Charlotte and see what happens? And I was reached out to by a guy that owned a company that sold spoilers to car dealerships.
Spoilers. Oh, this is like back in the day. You wanted to date a guy with a spoiler. Right? That was cool.
So I thought,
I can see why that'd be a thing.
I have arrived. I'm getting a job in sales. And that was not exactly, everything it had.
And go back. So you wanted to be in sales. Remind me, so sales was interesting to you just to make some money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No shame in that game.
Right. Well, so, I had seen and experienced some things in my childhood that made me want to make an impact. And, which was part of what was driving me to get a degree in criminal justice and go to law school so that I could, help change the world. Very idealistic. What I asked for my graduation gift from college was the entire collection of Maya Angelou books from my mother. Like, that was what I wanted, because when I read the poem Still I Rise, I actually have that tattoo on my
that's
ribs.
your tattoo. Yeah, another thing we have in common.
Right. At age 18, it just knocked me on my tail. And ever since then, I thought, okay, so there's a couple ways we can go about this. I can, I had, through my degree and through some research and experience in the criminal justice system in college, I realized, like, what, I became jaded. Like, the justice system is very difficult for one person to make change. And so I thought, what, if I go out and get a job in sales and I can make a ton of money, like maybe I could be like Oprah, where I could just like go and like start giving my money away to and like helping organizations.
You get a car.
Right. And helping change people's lives. And I think that's another point too, because like there's been so many times in my life that whether it was, volunteering or doing some fundraising events for the organization I was heavily involved in for a number of years, Foster Success. It was formerly called Connect by 25, where there were times where I was like, okay, if once I do X, then I'll be able to spend time over here or volunteer or point my energy towards making a difference in this group of population or this group of population. And it was funny that you mentioned Chris Brantman earlier, because he was one of those people that said to me, it was on my monthly business plan as one of my personal goals. Like, I want to volunteer and I want to make an impact, because that was always there and never went away. And he finally said to me, like, so this has been on your goals for 6 months. Like, when are you actually going to do something about this? Mm-hmm. Like, find where you want to point your energy and actually go do something. Because I had this little voice in my head going, well, I haven't made enough money yet. I don't have enough time yet. When I get caught up.
When I make enough money. But, okay, so this is beautiful, because you took some childhood experiences that were less than stellar. We'll just say it sucked. And you said, I want to make a difference in the future because this happened in my life. So this is a perfect example of when you own your entire story. I call it standing tall in your story. You used that experience to fuel you in what you wanted to do in the future. And how that played out has taken some twists and turns, but you've been very intentional. Now that you look back on it, you may not have felt that way at the time. When you're interviewing for the spoiler job, you're like, oh, I'm going to be Oprah. Like,
one day.
You're probably not making those connections. But what's happening, though, is because you still have that sense of futuristic purpose, you're doing things that are breadcrumb trail discovery, stepping you through that process.
That's right.
Because now when I look at you and the things that you do, you're heavily involved in nonprofit organizations. Thank you, Chris Brantman, for pushing you into that, right? Because it's been a significant impact in the community that so many people wouldn't have benefited had you not shown up in that way. But I think this is a really good reminder for all of us high achievers that it takes being curious to follow that around to see how things add up, and we don't just come out of college or come out of our 20s and go, oh, here I am, I've arrived, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I got to hear about the spoiler job. So did you get the spoiler job?
Oh, yeah. So I got the job.
Oh, yeah.
It was all of it, all of the glamour you can even imagine, and none of that. But what it did was it led me to then selling cars. And because one of the dealerships that I sold spoilers to, one of the general managers, he was just the kindest, fatherly figure. And he's like, you know what? Like, I'd love for you to come join our team. And I did. And he taught me a lot. And by being there and in that environment, while selling cars in Fort Mill, South Carolina in the summer is not all that it is cracked up to be. What it did was it put me in connection and relationship with one of the guys I worked with. His girlfriend worked in telecom, and we met. I met her boss. He offered me a position, and it was and I took it in telecom, which became my first real business to business sales experience.
Yeah.
And, I mean, had I not followed that interest and that curiosity and some of the things in our head are like, well, am I really going to go do that? Well, yeah, you just don't know where it's going to go. And so, had some great experience, true, grit, resilience building experience, business to business, knocking on 25 doors a day, reselling telecom services off the Bell South network. There would be days that were so bad where I just didn't know, we all have, those really great days and then those days that suck. And there was days that sucked so bad. And my refuge was the Hallmark store. And I would go in and read cards, cards to give to people. Oh my God.
Sales ain't no game.
No.
Yeah, that's how we met. I'm with you.
Dang it. Had I not done all of that and got really in some of those places that are so uncomfortable, I wouldn't have been ready for when we moved back and I had that chance to get, to work for ADP and had an amazing career there for almost 14 years. And then found myself, at one of the senior leader positions at ADP that I had, I joked about in my, one of the posts I made about my position I just was promoted to, about this farm girl from Indiana that was I'm now in the top 1% of all executives in ADP, and I'm gonna leave. What?
Who does that?
And it wasn't because I wasn't happy. It was because this opportunity approached and it felt like home. It felt like I get to go and do the things that my curiosity now has led me to put myself in a position where I can be curious for other businesses. I can help build people and help them on their journey. It just felt right.
And I think that's an important underscore highlight, because when you're 25, 28, 34, being curious and making changes feels in my head and heart a little easier. As you get into your, you're in your mid 40s, I'm mid 50s, almost mid 50s.
And we're just getting started.
But isn't it this weird feeling of, shouldn't we be there already, wherever there is? And is a change too risky? Now, shouldn't we already be in this long-term career? I found that when I left my corporate career 4 years ago now, it felt different. It wasn't like the when I was in my 20s, I would just run away and try something else and gypsy right? But now it was I was expected, I've got a 401k and kids that expect college and stuff. I should be quote unquote responsible. But what we're saying is responsible is I'm going to be curious enough about my own story and my own career that I'm going to own it and follow this curiosity to the next thing.
Yeah. And being curious about I still think it is responsible. There's an obligation we have to follow that, because guess what? There are people, I was one of those people, you were probably one of those people that when we were in our 20s that were counting on other women like us that were responsible enough to say, I'm going to help lift you up, sister. Yeah. I'm going to help you see things in you that you don't see. And so there is an obligation, I feel, that if I ignored that curiosity and ignored that change, there's people that are dreaming, their dreams are counting on me achieving my next dreams and yours. Right. And I don't know who those people are yet, but I know some of the people that have helped me achieve mine, and I'm honoring them by continuing to stay curious and not comfortable.
Absolutely. And there's so many opportunities today in the way that work can be done, that now that we've got all this rich experience that we've gained from all these great positions, it's up to us to now use those in amazing ways and model that. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about with this Rise and Thrive experience that you're a part of here in Indianapolis that we launched last month, is that come March, the 6 women and you that you are in this experience, you're going to stand tall in your story and talk about your experience, because when we do that, we inspire others to courageously stand tall in their story. So I just picture these,
150 other women in this audience being able to be inspired by y'all's stories and have that be something that takes them to the next level or lets them follow their curiosity, because all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, it's not like I read in the textbooks that said I have to find my career right out of college. Like, wow, look at the stories of these women. I want to be curious.
Right. Yeah. The when you approached me about this experience and being a part of it, it was a hell yes moment for me. And I'm trying to be better about that, because as a connector and a stimulator, like, according to Standout, like I want to say yes to everything. And so I'm trying to get better about saying no to things that aren't a hell yes.
Yeah. Right.
But there was not even a question in my mind. When you approached me about this opportunity to be a part of this experience, it was a hell yes. And it wasn't, I guess it didn't show up for me initially as a hell yes of like, oh yeah, I get to go through this and learn and then share my story with others that, in the hopes that it inspires them. That's all such an important part of it, but it wasn't the initial response. The initial response was, okay, I know I need this. Like every move I've ever made in my career, every position I've ever taken, the next step, if I had it figured out, I would have already been in those positions. So like the thing that has helped me with, the trusting my curiosity is knowing like, okay, if I take that leap and move into that, like I need to make sure I have an army around me and that I've got people that can support me and teach me the things that like I've got enough experience that, is why I got into this position, but there's going to be new things that I need to know that I don't already have access to. And I need to surround myself with an army of people that can help me with that. And that's one of the things that jumped out. I was like, you know what, the next version of me and how I can best serve our organization and our clients. I've got some of the tools there, but I know I need more.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll always need more. Yeah. Right. And we should shout out to your CEO.
Yeah.
Because one of the first things that he said to you when you took this job with Gibson Insurance at a high level next to him was, tell that story.
Yeah. So in our very first discussions, he was like, listen, he's a member of YPO and really values having peer groups to be a part of and to learn from and to grow with each other. And it was one of the very first assignments he gave me coming here. He's like, listen, like, I want you to find your peer group, your people, like the way that, people that can pour into you, like the people in YPO have poured into him, and how he's been able to share some of the things he's learned in that as well. So that was on my mind from day one. And for him to recognize, like, this is, I mean, he lives and breathes that. He believes, like, if you're not developing yourself and you're not helping take care of yourself, you can't serve the organization. And so it was just really powerful. Like, I knew he was awesome, or I wouldn't have.
Let's shout him out by name so we can.
Tim Lehman, just an incredible partner and friend, and just awesome guy to get to go and do the things that we get to do together. But it was all of those things in my experiences with him before that I knew it wasn't just like, I've heard he's great. Like, I've known him for years and knew his reputation and saw him perform. So I knew that was there, and that made my decision easier. But then from day one, like, for him to say, this is who I am and this is what I expect. Like, I want you to develop yourself. I want you to grow. Like, it was like, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you,
awesome.
Tim, for being an amazing leader. That's another part of, I think, the curiosity trail that you should take into consideration sometimes is not always about the job itself, but who are you going to be working for and with, and what can you glean from that experience? Because that's been, when I look back on my experiences, all of the crazy stuff that I've done along the way, it's those great leaders, and sometimes the really awful ones taught me some things too, but the great leaders, it wasn't really about the job, it's what I learned from who was leading me.
Yeah, I had one of my mentors and just most inspirational women in my life, Maria Black, had shared with me. She's the president of HRO and SBS for ADP, and a phenomenal woman. She had shared with me, as I was considering a different position at ADP at one point in my career. She was like, there's often times where we like look at the position and we're selling like what we can bring to the position. And she said, you've got to also consider what you're going to gain from the position. Like, how is it going to help you be a better leader? What skills are you going to benefit from that? Because if you don't have a clear perspective on what those things are, like why you're there, like not because of what you can do in that role. Yes, that's important. And that's why you move into a position, but what you're getting out of it, it's going to be the thing that helps you in those times when you don't want to get out of bed and maybe you are working for a really terrible boss or whatever it is. Maybe it's a really challenging part of the business experience, like whatever it is. Like if you don't have the clarity of like, I'm going through this, I'm crossing this bridge because I am on the other side, I'm going to be better for it. It was one of the most powerful things. And so I looked at that, like, how am I going to be better by joining this organization and being, in my community more now and being home? It was very intentional on that front too. Like I knew I could do some amazing work here because I was, my values and the organization and Tim's values are very much aligned. But I also thought, you know what, I've got to, like, this is going to be a scary time while I figure it all out. And I've got to keep it front and center, like why I'm doing this, so I don't miss out on my daughter's life right now. So I can take some of the things that I know when we get it right, that help people's parents go home at night and coach soccer and coach basketball. And like when we get it right and when we do the right things that are in our company, in our industry, I mean, insurance isn't glamorous, but damn it, like if it's not done right, if you don't have like prevention and all of the access to information and crap, like being able to have people that are naturally curious on your watch, like people get sick and they don't get the treatment they need. People like, but we get it right. And that's what it's like, every day.
Well, that points to what we've talked a lot about over the last month, which is always knowing the why, not just the what and the how. Because it's easy to get buried in meetings and appointments and tasks and calls and dashboards. But waking up every day and knowing why you are doing something is critical.
Yeah.
It's critical.
And I if I'm honest, I wasn't 100% clear. I mean, I felt like what I can bring to this organization, what it's going to bring to me. Like I have a natural curiosity about like the way we can impact businesses. I have experience in, all of the things around human capital and building out, teams and strong leaders and all of those things. And so it felt right. And it felt like it was going to align with like where my loves are, not my loathes, like being able to be with people and in front of, clients and prospects and all of that. Like it had all of the hardwiring of everything that I know is a good playground for me to play in. But what I was still unclear on is like, okay, so what is it really like? Why is this role? Why is this now for me? And I just, over the last few months, like I said earlier, like insurance isn't glamorous, but what is so incredibly rewarding is hearing stories. And I'll give you two examples. Yeah. We have a client that, because of some of the things that we do to challenge and be really innovative, we encourage them to implement a program that is essentially an interception of of some of the really bad things that occur. So one of their employees had been diagnosed with cancer. And because of the work that we've done, and because we got it right, and we really pushed them to do something different, that employee got a second opinion, and we found out that they actually did not have cancer. It was a misdiagnosis.
Oh my gosh.
And it gives me chills every time I think about that. And the more I read about it and how frequent that is and how many people are affected by cancer. And it's like, holy crap. If we can make sure that those second opinions occur and that they happen, I mean, it's
oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
It isn't about like, can I get you the best plan with the lowest, like the best insurance policy, whatever. Yeah. I mean, you have to have all of that. That is always there. But gosh, if you can say to one of your employee comes into you and says, I actually don't have cancer. Like, Holy.
And you helped facilitate that by getting a second opinion.
Right. Their same client, similar story. Like they had an employee that was having all of this pain. They're in the construction industry, all of this pain in their shoulder. They had gotten, diagnosed that, there's really nothing, that can be done. You need physical therapy and ongoing, pain management. And same situation where we were like, you know what, like we didn't, but the group that we put in place, the process that we put in place got that employee a second opinion. And in that case, the employee actually needed surgery. Like I think about like opioid addiction and everything that's happening in and around us in this state in particular. And I think about like, had that not happened, like had he not gotten the treatment that he really needs, like fast forward 2 years, like is he on more prescriptions than he needed to be?
Yeah, where he's been managing the pain instead of
That's
helping
right.
heal. Yeah.
So
Right.
it's just profound to me that the ways that by staying curious and by staying like we're not satisfied with the status quo that healthcare in this country is absolutely broken. Like we're constantly looking for ways, and we don't have them all figured out, but we are ruthless in our pursuit to helping our clients and our team, their employees have access to the best information. So
That's beautiful. And what a perfect example of what you said earlier, which is, insurance isn't exciting, except that is exciting, right? Yeah. And when you, as a member of that company, a leader, or even just anyone that works in that company, when you show up every day thinking about why you're there versus, I got 3 meetings today, I've got this, I got that. That's a different level of engagement. We talk a lot today about engagement, which I could go on a rant about. Engagement isn't a program. That's engagement.
Right.
That's the difference.
It's so crazy you say that, because as I was, thinking about this morning in our conversation, and I was thinking about like, we don't like that word engagement. I'm like, there's so much energy and focus around it and it being a thing. And I actually believe we don't have an engagement problem. I believe we have a lack of why clarity problem,
I agree.
A lack of dreams problem. And I've been on that. I mean, I've been on that side too, where I've lost sight of my goals, lost sight of my dreams, lost sight of my whys. And those are dark places.
Yeah, right. Because the work is freaking hard.
Everything is hard. Doing laundry is hard when you don't have
Yeah. Well, I think I shared this story with our group previously. I was doing a keynote and I was talking about this idea of why. Mm-hmm. And I said, I want you to pull out your calendars and look at the tasks you have today and tomorrow and ask yourself, why are you doing those?
Yeah.
And I had them talk at their tables. And then I said, hey, who has an example? And this lady said, okay, this might sound silly, but I was really cranky that I had to go to Kohl's this afternoon to buy khaki pants for my husband for a business casual wedding. She was like, first of all, what's a business casual wedding? Like, it all seems weird. She goes, and I was cranky about it because I didn't want to drive across town. I didn't want to go through traffic. I don't have a 30% off coupon. Like, I was just cranky about it going to Kohl's. She said, but when you said that about why, she said, my husband has the most amazing relationship with his niece, and this is her wedding. And we feel so honored that we are here local, that we get to be a part of it, and they have such a close relationship. She said, all of a sudden, driving across town through traffic to buy khaki pants doesn't feel so awful.
Yeah.
And
my God.
I mean, that is just a simple, but you think about walking through your day,
yes,
knowing why you're doing things. That is a different way to engage in your life.
No doubt about it.
Of course, then she shouted out and said, does anybody have a 30% off coupon?
By the way, go ahead and send that over.
Yeah, right? But that's the thing, right?
No doubt about it. It's, and we all have an opportunity to, we've referenced a couple of people already that have helped me in those moments where I've maybe lost my why or didn't really know what to do. And like I said earlier, I have an obligation to help others find that for themselves and find their goals and find their dreams and be their eyes. You just had an amazing person on your podcast recently that I heard, and I loved the phrase that she mentioned about borrowing other people's eyes when you can't see for yourself.
Dawn. Yeah. From Rain Today. Yes.
Amazing.
Dawn Roseman.
Yeah. Like I've had a lot of people that I've had to borrow their eyes over the years. And so
it's awesome. I'm so glad you've been here.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Oh, we're going to do it again, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And I'm not coming down.
Isn't she great? Oh my goodness. Go follow Courtney on LinkedIn, Instagram, and a big shout out thank you to Gibson Insurance for their investment in Courtney, both here on the podcast as well as with Rise and Thrive Indianapolis. We are so lucky to have her here in my home city with all of the great work that she does in the community. So your reflection question for today is, what's the thing that you've been curious about that you might need to take one small step towards, one courageous small step towards? And make sure you go to badasswomenscouncil.com, take the quiz, and if you're courageous enough, you can jump into the online community, which is badasswomenscouncil.community. We're all there hanging out, and we want to see you there too. Make it a great one.
I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.